I'm going to show you how to multiply 1/2 times 1/4. 1/2 times 1/4 is basically 1 times 1 over 2 times 4. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 4 is 8. So the answer is 1/8. You could also draw a picture, and you should be familiar with drawing these pictures because they're going to ask you or possibly show you a picture, and you're going to have to understand what it's saying. So 1/4, 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/4 shaded, and then splitting it in half and showing a half. What's shaded by both is 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which proves that the answer is 1/8. Now, if I did 1/4 of 2/3, it's basically 1 times 2 over 4 times 3, which equals 2/12. Or you could do 1 times 2 over 4 times 3 and simplify first. I could divide 2 and 4 both by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 3 is 6. So 2/6 or 1/12, or sorry, 2/12 or 1/6 is the correct answer. And you could draw this showing 2/3 shaded, then split into fourths and shade 1/4. So I have 1, 2 shaded out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the answer is 2/12 or 1/6. Now let's multiply a mixed number times a fraction. So 2 and 1/4 times 5/9. I'm just going to write it so it's a little bigger for me. You can do 2 times 5/9, which is equal to 10/9, or 1 and 1/9, and then 1/4 times 5/9 equals 5 over 36. So now we need to add 1 and 1/9 plus 5 over 36. So I need to change 9 to 36 so that I can have common denominators in order to add. So I'm going to do 9 times 4 is 36. 1 times 4 is 4. So I have 1 and 4 36 plus 5 36 equals 1 and 9 over 36. Now we can also simplify this by dividing 9 and 36 both by 9. And we get 1, and 9 divided by 9 is 1. 36 divided by 9 is 4. So the answer is 1 and 1/4 or 1 and 9/36. Both of them are equivalent and correct. Now let's multiply decimals times whole numbers and decimals times decimals. So in this module, they showed you how to multiply decimals by changing them to fractions. So 1 and 2/10 is how many total tenths? 12 tenths. And we're multiplying that times 32. So we're going to do 12 times 32 over 10. So we need to do 32 times 12 off to the side. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Placeholder. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. Add them together and we get 384 over 10, or 384 tenths. So that means the last number I say needs to go in the 10th place. So the 4 is going to go in the 10th place. Before the 10th place is the ones place, and there's always a decimal between that. So we're going to put the 8 there, and then we're going to put the 3 in the 10th place. So 1 and 2/10 times 32 is equal to 38 and 4/10. Now let's multiply 1 and 5/10 times 35/100. How many total tenths is 1 and 5/10? Well, that's 15 tenths. We're going to multiply that times 35/100. So 35 out of 100. 10 times 100 is 1,000. And then we need to multiply 15 times 35 off to the side. And then that answer we're going to put over 1,000. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. Placeholder. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. We add our partial products. We get 525 thousandths. So 5 will go in the thousandths place. The hundredths place will get the 2, and the tenths place will get the 5, and the decimal's always before the tenths place. So 1 and 5/10 times 35/100 is 525 thousandths. I'm going to show you how to do 12 6/10 times 2/5. We either have to change both of these to fractions or both of them to decimals in order to solve. So I'm going to change 12 6/10 to a fraction. So I'm going to put it over 10 since 6 is in the tenths place. All right, so that's 126 tenths. I'm going to multiply that by 2/5. 10 times 5 is 50. 126 times 2 I can do off to the side. 6 times 2 is 12. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. So I have 252 fiftieths. Now if I divide 252 by 50, I will have my answer. So 50 can't go into 2, can't go into 25. 50 can go into 252. Let me think. If I count by 50s, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250 can go in 5 times, because 5 times 5 is 25, so 5 times 50 is 250. And I have 2 left out of 50. So 12 6/10 times 2/5 is 5 2/50, or this is also equal to, if I divide both of these by 2, I can get 5 1/25. This problem says Pablo claims that multiplication always makes a number bigger. He gave the following examples. If I take a 6 and multiply by a 6, I get 36, which is bigger than 6. So he's saying 6 times 6 equals 36. And he's saying 36 is greater than 6. That's true. And he says if he takes 1 6 and multiplies it by 2, he gets 2 6, and 2 6 is greater than 1 6. That's true too. But Pablo's reasoning is incorrect. We need to give an example that proves he is wrong and explain his mistake using pictures, words, or numbers. Let's try that. So how can we prove that his reasoning is incorrect? Well, I know that if I multiply by a number that's bigger than 1, like 6, and 2, like Pablo did, I know that my number is going to be bigger than the initial factor. But if I multiply by a number less than 1, it should be smaller. Let's try this. Let's say I take 1/2 and I multiply it by a number less than 1, like 1/2. 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/4. And 1/4 is less than 1/2. So that disproves his thinking. Let's think of another one. We need to find another one that's less than 1. Let's say we have 3 and we want to multiply it by 1/8. I get 3/8, and 3/8 is less than 3. So that also disproves his thinking. You don't have to have the exact same answers as I do, but you do need to have answers that show that the scaling factor, or the second factor, is less than 1, which will make your product less than your first factor. Now this problem is really difficult, so pay close attention. McKenna's collecting milk from 8 different cows and recorded the amount collected in gallons from each cow in the line plot shown below. She wants to write the value of each point marked on the number line above in terms of the largest possible whole number of gallons, quarts, and pints. Use the line plot above to fill in the blanks with the correct conversions. The first one is done for you. So let's look at that first one. So the first A here, this first section here, is 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, okay? So something we need to know is that there's 8 lines between 0 and 1, okay? That means 8 pints equal a gallon. So the smallest unit is pints, okay? That's each line. Each line is 1 pint, okay? Every 2 lines is a quart, okay? Because there are 2 pints in a quart, okay? So every 2 lines is a quart. Here's 1 quart, here's 2 quarts, here's 3 quarts, here's 4 quarts, okay? In a gallon. And then, like I said, every pint is 1, every quart is 2, and every gallon is 8. Because there's 2 pints in a quart, and 4 quarts in a gallon, and 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so that's why this is 2 quarts, because it's 1 quart is 2 lines, the next 2 lines is 2 quarts. Let's try B. How many gallons do we have for B? We have 1 gallon, so we're going to write 1 in the gallon section. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3 lines. We said every 2 lines is a quart. So we have 1 gallon and 1 quart. And then we have 1 more line, which means we have 1 pint. okay? Because 3 pints or 3 lines is actually 1 quart and 1 pint. So we have 1 gallon, 1 quart, and 1 pint. Now let's try C. Okay, C is over here, which means we have 2 gallons. Okay, now we have 2 lines, which is 2 pints, but 2 pints equals 1 quart, right? Every 2 line is 1 quart. So we have 2 gallons, 1 quart, 0 pints. And D, right here, is again 2 gallons. Okay, now we're going to count every other line. That's 1 quart. That's 2 quarts. So we have 2 quarts. And then that's 1 quart, 2 quarts. We have 1 more line, which is a pint. 1 more pint. So we have 2 quarts, 2 gallons, or 2 gallons, 2 quarts, and 1 pint for our last. Part B says they want us to find the total amount of milk collected from 5 cows that produce the most milk. So I want you to look at your line plot. Now your line plot has 4 points at line D. So we're going to take D, which was 2 gallons, 2 quarts, and 1 pint, and we're going to add that together 4 times because that's 4 of the biggest, 4 of the largest collection of cow milk. So we're going to add that 4 times. Okay, and we also have to add 1 more x, which is C. C has 1x, which was 2 gallons, 1 quart, and 0 pints. And now all we need to do is add these all together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pints. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 quarts. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 gallons. Okay, now this is correct, except we can convert pints to quarts and quarts to gallons and try to make them in their simplest terms. So how many pints are in a quart? We know 2 pints are in a quart. So if I pull 2 out of this, I can add a quart here. That would leave me with 2 more pints. I could pull 2 more pints out and add 1 more quart. So now I have 0 pints, I have 11 quarts, and I have 10 gallons. Okay, now I can pull quarts and change them into gallons. So I have 4 quarts in 1 gallon, so I know I can pull 1 gallon out, which is 4 quarts. I can pull a 2nd gallon out, which is 4 quarts, and then I can solve, and that will be my answer. So 11 minus 8 is 3, and 10 plus 1 plus 1 is 12. So our answer for the total amount of milk collected from 5 cows that produce the most milk is 12 gallons, 3 quarts, and 0 pints. Katrina has 3 3/4 pounds of butter. She used 2/5 of it for baking. How much butter did she use baking? She had this much and she used this much of it. So we need to do 2/5 of, which is multiply, 2/5 of 3 3/4. Now there's 2 ways we could solve this problem. We could go fraction times whole number, fraction times fraction, and add them together. Or we could change 3 3/4 to a mixed number and multiply by 2/5. I'm going to show you that way now. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 3 is 15. So we have 15/4 times 2/3, which equals 30/20. All right, and 30 divided by 20. 20 goes into 30 once. And I get 10 left out of 20. Okay, and 10 over 20 can be divided by 2 over 2. And I get 1 and 5 tenths. Again, I could divide both by 5. And I could get 1 and 1/2. So he or she, Katrina, used 1.5 pounds of butter for baking. William had a 1/2 gallon of lemonade. He sold 1/4 of it. How much lemonade in cups was sold? So she sold 1/4 of the 1/2 gallon. So 1/8 is in gallons, and we want to know how many cups that is. So we need to change 1/8 gallons to cups. So we need to figure out how many cups are in a gallon because we know gallons is big. Okay, so we're going to be multiplying. Big to small is multiply. So we need to do 1/8 times how many cups are in a gallon. So on your conversion sheet, it tells you how many cups are in a pint, how many pints are in a quart, and how many quarts are in a gallon. All we need to do is multiply those together, and it will give us 16. Okay, 4 times 2 times 2 is 16. So there's 16 cups in a gallon. So we need to do 1/8 times 16, which is 16/8, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So 2 cups. So how much lemonade in cups was sold is 2 cups.